Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 10 of the Manufacture series. Let's get this started. Slowly bring yourself to the right side of the track, and right after the dirt on the right turns into tarmac, that is when you start to brake. Brake as much as you can. Slowly start to turn in and ease off on the brakes. You can use the sausage curbs as your apex and accelerating point, so once you're lined up with it, you can start to carefully accelerate your way out. Bring yourself to the left side of the track, and when the dirt on the left turns into gravel, that is when you start to brake. Use some braking as you want to make sure that your car rotates around this turn. Slowly start to accelerate as this turn does go a bit more in. Then before you reach the one board, that is when you use just a little bit of braking, carefully accelerate your way out. You want to make sure you get a good exit speed. Then brake in between the 3 and the 2 board, and once again, just be very patient on when you start to accelerate. Now for this turn, you want to use a little bit of braking when you reach the 2 board, trail brake your way into the apex, and once you're about to hit the apex, that is when you start to accelerate. You want to get this turn right so you don't end up making contact with the dirt. For the corkscrew, brake before you reach the 3 board, brake as much as you can, and get the car to rotate around this first apex right here. Get the car pointing towards this empty area where the car's pointing at right now, as that will basically be the racing line, and you want to start to carefully accelerate your way down. You'll still be on track if you do this right, and then just bring yourself to the right side of the track. Ease off the throttle until you hit the apex and carefully apply the throttle. Use the 2 board as your braking marker, and you want to be a little bit aggressive when you start to accelerate. Then for the final turn, brake when you're about to reach the 3 board, and once again, just get the car to rotate as quickly as possible. Then start to accelerate without getting too much wheel spin, as getting a good exit here will get you a good start for the next lap. That is all for the guide. Let's go ahead and talk about the strategies. For this race, there are 2 strategies that yield some interesting results. The first one is where you start on racing soft tires, then change on over to racing medium tires, and the other one is where you start and end on that one set of racing medium tires. But the first one, of course, is interchangeable, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll do racing soft into medium. Now, you want to make sure you only do 1 pit stop, because as you're about to see, it takes an eon for your car to turn left and go into your pit box. So because of that, you want to carefully make sure that you're switching over to the tires that you need to change to. So in this case, I'm switching on over to racing medium tires, so I make sure I switch into those tires, because if I make a mistake and accidentally choose racing soft tires, I have to go back into the pit stop, and with the duration it takes to complete all of that, my race is basically over. With the tire wear at ×8, your tires are going to wear out pretty quick, especially your racing soft tires. So when it comes to the racing soft tires, they're most likely not going to last until the halfway point of the race. So ideally, you want to pit at around lap 6 or 7. Trying to go 8 laps, depending on the car you're in, might be pushing it. So in this case with the 911 RSR, I pitted at the end of lap 8, and I feel like the car was starting to get a little bit sketchy. So if you want to be safe, once again, try to pit in between laps 6 and 7 or 7 to switch out of racing soft tires. So when you switch on over to the racing medium tires, your car is going to be a little bit lighter because you already used up a bunch of fuel from your first stint. So you might notice that your times on the racing medium stint is a little bit closer to that of the racing soft stint. Don't forget that in your first stint, you had the extra weight from the fuel, and in this case, for the second stint, you don't have as much. So you're going to get slightly faster times, and since these tires last a bit longer than the racing soft tires, you can push a bit more to try to get the times that you want, or to initiate any quick battles with other players. And before I talk about the other strategy, I just want to say, try to be very careful when you're navigating through the corkscrew, because if you make the wrong approach to it, that thing will eat you alive. But anyways, Doing a no stop with the racy medium tires is possible, but it's going to be very difficult to be able to pull it off. So the thing with the racing medium tires is that even though the tires last longer than the racing soft tires, with the tire wear times 8, your tires are still going to be suffering a lot. Just look at the bottom left hand corner of the screen right here, and you can see that we're on lap 16 and my tires are already beyond dead. Now don't forget that those on the one stop have to go through a very long pit stop process. So if you happen to be somewhat close enough on the racing medium tires, you can potentially get an undercut on them as they exit the pit stop. At that point, if you are fully committed on going with the no stop strategy, you have to get ready to defend the heck out of your position. Even though it's possible to defend your position for a majority of this track, you still have to drive almost perfectly. You basically can't make any mistakes, because even if you make a little mistake and you give a little bit of an opening, someone who might be a little bit ambitious or a little bit desperate, especially if you're closer to the end of the final lap, they might get desperate and they might go for a move. So once again, you just want to drive as perfectly as possible if you are doing a no stop strategy, because even as you see this clip here where I'm doing the no stop strategy, I'm having a hard time trying to get the car to at least stay stable. So as I try to exit the turn, even just applying a little bit too much throttle can get the rear to spin or to whip out a little bit, and that can result in a bad exit. And especially for a part like this, if I get a bad exit and someone's right behind me, they're going to overtake me, and that's game over for me. So if you imagine that is hard, now imagine trying to go through the corkscrew, as you'll see in a moment. And yeah, pretty difficult to go through the corkscrew when your tires are extremely worn out. So to sum things up, there's a one-stop strategy where you go from racing soft into medium tires, and then there's a second strategy where you do a no stop on racing medium tires only. So with the first strategy, you'll get decent times throughout your race, especially with the racing medium tires, as you've already used up a good chunk of fuel. And with the second strategy, it's a bit more ambitious and it's a pretty risky one, but if you're able to defend the heck out of your position and make sure that those on the one stop don't even have a slither of a space to make a move, then that is your strategy. But other than that, if you were to ask me which strategy I'd go with, the first strategy is the one for me. Now when it comes to fuel, for me, I didn't have to do any fuel saving, but for those cars that consume a lot more fuel, you might have to think about short shifting just a little bit to make sure that you don't run out of fuel at all. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this guide. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So this is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.